Time now for our press review, and Solange Moujon is here with us to take a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world. And Solange, we're starting with a look at the coverage in the American press at tomorrow's anniversary of the 9/11 attacks.
Yeah, on the eve of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, the New York Times is taking a look at how that day was a seismic change for many Muslim Americans. The paper says that many feel that it created both challenges, namely by their becoming victims of hate crimes, some of them, and long-lasting stigmas. But there were also possibilities, the New York Times says. The upside being, quote, it birthed a generation determined to define their place in American life on their own terms, end quote, through things like, the paper says, getting Muslim Americans elected to Congress.
And outside the U.S., on a geopolitical level, 9/11 obviously changed the world, specifically in the Middle East.
Yeah, the Washington Post, it argues that the Islamic world, well, it has become less apt to help privately or publicly regimes like the Taliban. And that according to the Washington Post, shows up in the fact that the Taliban has just announced that their main ally will be China, a country that is committing what many observers see as a cultural genocide against Uyghur Muslims. Now, this shift away from Muslim nations, well, the Post argues that it has everything to do with 9/11. But the Middle East Eye, it says that the world makes too much about this, quote, iconic crescendo of 9/11. It argues that this idea of 9/11 has overwhelmed and distorted other crucial events, like the revolutionary uprising in Iran, like the Arab Spring. It is time, the site says, to, quote, rethink the regional imperialist narrative, end quote.
In other news out of the United States, you're looking at the reaction to the U.S. federal government, the Justice Department suing the state of Texas over its controversial abortion ban.
Yeah, and the U.S. press is quite divided, actually, on this lawsuit to protect, to go against Texas's move, and they're trying to protect women against this near total abortion ban. On the one hand, the Associated Press, it argues that it is going to be an uphill battle because the law is written, quote, in a nefariously clever way. But Slate, they say that the federal government actually has a stark advantage over other plaintiffs in that it has the unique ability to sue the entire state of Texas on behalf of the federal government. Now, this whole issue of abortion rights on a global scale, the New York Times is discussing it. They're looking beyond the U.S. borders. It argues that globally there is a shift towards women's rights in countries around the world. But there are a few exceptions, the paper says, to this progressive trend. Both Poland and the United States are the only two countries that are actually rolling back abortion rights. And the Times argues that there's a reason for this. They say that democracy has also been rolled back in these countries as minority groups are trying to sway policies for the majority by gaining control of the courts, they say.
And there's a few other states that are expected to put similar laws in place. So this is probably going to be a story in the headlines for quite a while.
It's going to come back again and again.
You're going to bring us back to Europe now for a story about a Franco-British rift that is making headlines over here.
Yeah, as The Independent tells us, this rift is over the UK's Home Secretary, Priti Patel, saying that she plans to send boats of migrants back into French waters to basically push them away. And the proposal, well, it has not gone down well on both sides of the channel, according to Politico. Now, the French Interior Minister, Gérald Darmanin, says it could make the channel, quote, a theater of human tragedies, and that France will not bow to both financial blackmail or breaks with maritime law or the necessity to help people in need in the seas. Now, British cartoonists are not too pleased either. Dave Brown has drawn a mischievous Patel submarine sending torpedoes both on rafts of migrants and, you see the U-turn one there, on herself, with the cartoonists wondering whether they will be dead in the water. And Steve Bell, well, he too has portrayed Patel as a sword-wielding pirate in a border control boat that is surveying a sea of sunken rafts in what he calls the pirates of the English Channel.
You've got a couple of lighter stories as well for us here on the press review, including some humorous science news.
Yes, The Guardian tells us that this year's recipients of the Ig Nobel have been awarded at Harvard, not to be confused with the Nobel. These satirical prizes are given to the best in unusual science discoveries. And this year's recipients, well, they included a researcher who found that men's beards, well, they actually have protective qualities when it comes to fistfights. It helps the skin, I guess, the research found. A group found that airlifting rhinoceroses upside down is actually better for them than side transport, and this one is one of the mind-blowing ones. The medicine prize, well, it went to a team that found that having an orgasm is actually a pretty effective method to clear a blocked nose. At least it works as well according to the research as well as commercial decongestants.
All news we need to know here on France 24 as well. Finally, Solange, it smells like teen spirit over at the U.S. Open tennis tournament.
Yeah, this will decongest us all. As the Daily Mail tells us, tenniswoman 18-year-old Emma Raducanu has become the first British teen ever to reach a Grand Slam final in the U.S. after she won against Maria Sakkari in the U.S. Open. And that is not the only first here. She was the first qualifier to reach a Grand Slam final in Open history. This means that a week prior to the U.S. Open, she went through another round in order just to qualify. And to boot, the L'Equipe tells us, the French Sports Daily tells us, she's going to go up against another teenager, or 19-year-old Leylah Fernandez, on Saturday in the final, which the fact that there's so many young teens in play right now, L'Equipe tells us that there is a larger trend of teen players at the moment, which is sort of bringing new life to tennis.
I was going to say, we might be seeing the new generation of tennis stars after what feels like decades of the same people dominating the tennis world. Solange, thank you so much for that press review and then look at what's making headlines around the world. And to share this press review or view former ones, you can head to our website, france24.com.